Welcome to I Love My HBCU ? The podcast where we express our undeniable love for HBCUs, but where we are also not afraid to address a few tough questions. So, sit back, learn a little, love a lot, and rep your HBCU. Another episode, and of course, another reason to love your HBCU. If you are part of our HBCU community, this is not a stranger that you see on your screen. The Jaden Readus from Jackson State University. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dr. Tosin. So glad to be back with you.
Same here. Listen, guys. Oh gosh, they're going to get at me for this. If you are only listening to us, you're doing yourself a disservice. I need you to get to a screen, whatever the Jaden's skin routine is, and I'm not being superficial. Whatever the Jaden's skin routine is, we all need it. Can
Oh,
you give us what your skin routine is in less than 30 seconds? Less than 30 seconds.
I do not do any. It's all natural. I don't do any
See?
facial products. Washing my face, and I do these towelettes. Just to wash because I
Yes.
be outside a lot, so make sure that I'm just cleaning my pores or whatever. Other than that, and water is my main thing. Other than that,
Your skin it's smooth, like it's almost artificial intelligence smooth on the screen. Okay, now let's get to the focus of this recording. But I'm serious, get to your screen wherever you get your podcast. You need to see the Jaden in live and in person, not just listening to his amazing voice. The Jaden, you are a rising senior at Jackson State University who happens to serve as many of your hats, but one of your hats is Senator at Large for the Student Government Association at Jackson State University. And as you know, our summer series picks a very specific topic that our Gen Nexters, those are our interns that work on the podcast,
yep.
want to talk about. So, what they've picked for this particular topic is something that you are very, very, very familiar with. And it is what is SGA? What does SGA actually do? So, we're going to get into Student Government Association this entire conversation. So, for those of you who just heard me do the intro and don't have your tea yet, go and get your tea. Go and get your water. If you've listened to the Jaden Readus on our podcast before, he does not hold back. And he's very passionate about the things that he talks about. So, for those who don't know, because if you're on a college campus, especially at an HBCU, SGA culture is big. What is Student Government Association if you were to define it? And as you define it, Jaden, what do you think Student Government Association should be responsible for? What should be their role? So, what is it? But also, what should their responsibilities be?
Yes. So for those who do not know, Student Government Association, where SGA, as many universities put it, stands for the Student Government Association. And SGA is the sole governing authority for anything, in my opinion, anything that is associated with students. Um, the responsibility of Student Government Association on any campus should be to govern every facet of anything that is due or has anything to do with students, whether it be student life, whether it be academics, whether it be mental health, whether that be wellness, whether that be um, financial aid, anything that I think encapsulates anything that is has to do with the student, SGA should be responsible for. Um, the responsibilities vary depending on, of course, the institution, but in its general sense, SGA is the governing body for all things student affairs. And
So,
these individuals are elected amongst their peers, of course, to represent them um, to administration. I oftentimes make the point that SGA is the middleman between the administration and the students. Yeah, and so they are the liaison essentially for the students, of course, to advocate to administration, to advocate to the board of trustees or the institution of higher learning that we have here in Mississippi, and of course to be the spokesperson in times of need or advocacy, whatever else.
I almost jumped in
Yeah.
'cause I love listen. They typically say don't use a word to define an entity, but the acronym is Student Government Association, and anyone listening to you, I think the biggest takeaway for what you said to define as well as to give the responsibilities of SGA is they are there to govern,
Govern.
right? The word govern being very, very important. So I'm going to ask you, and you can make this about Jackson State University if you want to, you don't have to. What I'm aware of is that members of SGA are familial with other SGAs across campuses. So it doesn't have to be specific to Jackson State. Do you think, based on the definition that you've given about the role and responsibility being to govern things that are associated with and will affect students, do you think that actually is the way many SGAs on HBCU campuses operate?
Absolutely not.
Give us
To
more.
define, I think we have moved into a space where it's more about popularity than policy. I think we elect people off popularity rather than knowing what they would do for me as a student. I think as students we have lost the thought that these individuals represent us in a way where they have power to advocate. I saw something online the other day, and it said whatever you can do the same thing as a regular student that you can do as a student leader. Essentially saying that the same power that a student leader has, a student has, which depending on the circumstances, it just depends. But I don't oftentimes think that's true.
Hmm.
The student leader is has access to different rooms that a minor student does not have. And so, which essentially lets me know that these student leaders should be held at a higher regard to advocate. There is no reason why our institutions should have a housing crisis and hear nothing from our student leaders. There's no situation why, essentially, to Howard University that enrollment or admissions is in the chaos that it's in at current, and we had not hear anything from our student leaders. These individuals act as the liaison. If I should hear anything, it shouldn't always have to come from the university itself or from the publications or marketing. It should be able to come from the Student Government Association because these are the individuals who represent me to the institution, to the university. And I think we as students have lost this thought process that these are the individuals that represent me. And I can hold these individuals accountable. And there is something that they need to be doing to make my experience at this institution better, because that's what I elected you for. And as I oftentimes say in modern day politics, we have to remind them who they work for. We put you in this position. And if my situation does not get better, then obviously there's something wrong with your arithmetic.
Wow. Wow. So correct me if I'm wrong. As I'm listening to you talk, this has got to be a little bit more than advocacy, then.
Oh, absolutely.
This has got to be engaged, active liaison. And in order for me to be a true liaison, I have to know what's coming in order for me to gather from the other side and bring back to you. If I'm a true quote unquote middle person, I've got to be well informed. Something tells me, because I'm not going to just ask you the question. I've got eyes, I've got ears, I can see and I can hear. Something tells me that student government association members are not in those rooms that we assume that they should be in order for them to be actual liaisons between the administration and the rest of the student body. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I absolutely agree. My experience, while I also am a former president of the Student Government Association. I experienced that I was not in the rooms where the decisions were being made. I mean, I think I've made a point throughout my career in student government that we were at that particular institution that we were put in spaces to be essentially figureheads to just look the part. But when it came down to the decisions that were being made that affected us as students, our opinions were never asked. Our opinions were never given. And so, but I think that's even the essential. That's why the word advocacy is so important because then, if I'm not in the room, that's when I advocate to this administration, informing you that that's why I need to be in the room. It's likely that most institutions of higher learning don't want to hear from the student leader because for a lot of them, what do they think we know about making decisions about governing a whole institution? But you're here because I'm here. I make it, me being enrolled in this institution, I'm able to pay your bills. So essentially, I should have a seat at the table. And so, but as a leader, my thought process is if you don't give me a seat at the table, I know this is a table I need to be at. So I'll just pull up a chair and I'm going to advocate for my chair.
I am an administrator, full disclosure.
Yeah,
So I think I'm not I think I know that I charging myself at all times to see both sides,
absolutely.
right? And seeing the side of administration, I think the only problem should be logistics. That's it. I think the only problem should be logistics. I don't think there should ever be a question where a student representative is not involved.
Mm,
I don't think there should ever be a question where a student representative isn't invited. Now, it's different if after we've invited you into the room, you are not an active engager in the
right.
room. We can't be responsible for that as administration and faculty and staff. But I don't see why student government association members that are properly equipped, that are being shown the ropes of governing and leadership, aren't invited into some of these necessary rooms. So that is where I would call out administration, no offense. And I am part of administration as I say this, that there should be more invitation of students in the room for part of that decision making. What
Absolutely.
I do find, and I think the Jaden Readus is going to agree with me on this, but what I do find is we invite you into the room after the decision has been made and not particularly to be an active part of the decision being made. Do you think that will ever change at HBCUs, Jaden?
If and only if student leaders recognize the voice that they have. And I say that because it is very effective and very important that we recognize our voice because, and it's not necessarily that these individuals don't want us in the room. It's just historically, you know, you asked me the question a minute ago, are these individuals, governing in the way that they should? Do these administrators feel that we have what it takes to be in these rooms?
There we go.
And it's not necessarily about earning a spot, but more so of when you discover what your position actually is and why you're there, and also figuring out how to make it work for you and, of course, for the students that you represent, then I feel as though you wouldn't have any problem, I would think, getting into these rooms or having them want to have you in these rooms because they can trust your leadership skills. They can trust um, um, your decision making skills. They can trust everything about you because they've seen you be an effective leader for these students and not just be a figurehead. And I
So,
think
so,
a lot of
so,
institutions want us to be those figureheads, but when you defy the odds, they'll invite you to the room.
Jaden, this is getting interesting.
Mhm.
You said, do these leaders trust that you are the leader that they hope and think that you are? You also just said that some of the administration and some of these leaders just want you to be a figurehead. And I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no, because this has got to be based on your experience. But can I pivot to how our student leaders in SGA are selected? And this goes back to that statement.
Absolutely.
So if I'm the president of a university, right? I might get in trouble for this. If I'm the president of a university and SGA elections come around, and the Jaden Readus wins as president of Student Government Association because he's a member of Me Fi Me. Just not going to put any fraternity out there, so we're going to make up our own Me Fi Me Fraternity Incorporated. And the way in which he got elected is because there was a new initiation, and all of his new brothers made sure, and his profile, his older brothers made sure that they got the word around that DeJaden's the pick. He's our new SGA president, and so DeJaden is the new SGA president. Mind you, DeJaden doesn't really have much interest in governing. DeJaden doesn't really have much interest in being a voice. DeJaden wants to be at the homecoming parties. DeJaden wants to be the figurehead. DeJaden wants the power of being able to say, "I'm Mr. SGA." Whose fault is that, Jaden? Number one. And number two, because I've just described something that is very common on most campuses where administration has to take what is elected,
Absolutely.
right? Whose fault is that? Number two, because this is something that's common, what should we do to change it? Because it doesn't appear that if that's the process we're using, that these leaders can be the persons in those invited spaces to make decisions on behalf of their cohorts.
I think it is the fault of our unchecked culture. And what I mean by that is, I think it's because it has been something that has been normalized to elect ineffective leaders. It has been normalized to elect people off popularity rather than policy. So we get in the thought process of a regular student, then okay, I'm electing this person off popularity, but I know they're not going to do nothing. And then eventually that basically, is changed to the language is changed to say that okay, their position has no power. But it's not necessarily that the position has no power. It's the individual that you elected does not have the power to push it. And so I think it's the culture. I think essentially it is the culture, and of course, misinformed students. I make the point oftentimes misinformed students go on to be misinformed community leaders, and I mean community members. And so I think if we to fixing it, I think if we put ourselves in the spaces to actively give the power back to SGA in order of making them understand who they are and why they are, and of course establishing the power that they have within, and of course being active in educating the students of this is what this power. I mean, this is the power that this institution or this specific office holds, and this is how you can get things done. It's not just a placeholder. It's not just a figurehead. It's not just somebody holding a position for a year, a school term, but it's somebody who can actually invoke effective change if and only if they are capable and have the power to do so. Even to a point you were making a minute ago, about these individuals being in the room. I think some of these individuals have to even want to make the change. We can be informed, the student leaders, that is, these SGA presidents and vice presidents or whomever can be informed of these issues that surround the institution, but they even have to ask themselves the question. And I think when it comes to election time, um, the students have to ask themselves the question: do these individuals want to make change? Because for most of them, the issues that face me as a regular student don't face the SGA president, because most of them are off on a full ride scholarship. Most the vice president have a stipend, they have an office, they have free housing. They get a lot of perks, so they don't have the same fight that we have. But as students, remembering, understanding the power and holding them accountable will get them to the fix.
Can we talk about election? Because I didn't hear
Absolutely.
you talk about the election process, and I paused. I took it in when you said it's the fault of unchecked culture, and I like that you didn't put this just on one person's shoulders or one set of people's shoulders, but it's a culture of this is how we do this. I've written down the first time you said it, popularity over policy. I'm going to steal that. Um, because I like the phrase.
Yeah.
And that phrase can be applied to more than just student government association elections. What about the election? What would you say about what elections, SGA elections, look like on campuses that you're aware of? Um, Speak on that.
hmm So all I can speak of is, of course, my institution. It is more of a activity than I think a platform. Um, I think on a platform, you discuss policy, you discuss initiatives, you discuss what I'm going to do with this position. I think for Jackson State, we have a week of events, and most of it is a meet and greet. Then we have a big election hotspot. And, we're giving out candy and we're giving out buttons and pens and all the regalia, whatever else that goes on with it. But there's one particular day where for Jackson State we do what is called the debate, and that's only for the president and the vice president. And for most of the time, they're just standing there spewing what they're going to do. Um, and but for the most part, nobody ever is, I don't think, given the opportunity to ask questions. Sometimes they are, but it's nothing that's real. Essentially, I don't think, because most of the students who are there are essentially friends of the individuals who are up there. And for the main student, I mean, for the normal student, we don't know even what to ask. because,
Yeah.
like I said, our thought process is they just gonna get the position to do whatever anyway. So there is no accountability that is even being had in this process. So elections, I think, are just more of a essentially just a facade, rather than a real accountability measure. I know even some of, not to segue, but even some of the points we're taking, even this semester at Jackson State, is being able to make sure these individuals have a pinpoint plan that this is what you're going to do. You say you ran off this, so this by the your end of your term or a specific time, you need to make sure to have had this done. We're no longer. I'm glad to be pushing this front. No longer just saying, okay, we're not doing any more broken promises. We're holding you accountable. I'm excited for this incoming administration at Jackson State, and we're going to make sure to hold each other, and of course, the future leaders accountable for what they say they're going to do, because we're tired of broken promises, and it has put our institution in a very feeble place.
You mentioned, I think it's NASAP. Is
Yeah,
that? Yes, I heard you mention that before,
mhm,
for the record,
yeah,
before. So we got to talking before
yeah.
we hit record. So we covered a lot of things as well. First of all, what does that stand for? And then I have a follow-up question because I've heard NASAP, NASAP, NASAP. My understanding is that it's a almost like a convention that preps students into the
Mhm.
incoming SGA year. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm not sure what the acronym stands for, but from my
Okay.
understanding, I've never been. I did have the opportunity to go this most recent um, time, but I wasn't able to. My schedule did not allow. But it's this convention, this conference where leaders come from all over the state, all over the country. HBCUs come together not only in fellowship, but also they have seminars and sessions where they are intrinsically endowing these student leaders with information, knowledge, and of course, relationship to be able to effectively prepare them for their incoming administrations. These are all, of course, newly elected leaders, and some of them have been in these conferences before, but the positions have changed, and just all those different types of things. So this is just a conference where they are hopefully endowing these leaders with the skill sets that they need to be able to run their royal course or run their SGAs.
So I hope there's a producer back there that's trying to find NASAP for me in real time. Um, um, the reason why I asked about it, I've heard about it, I've never been, but I've spoken to enough students at
Hmm.
different HBCUs that find their SGA a little bit problematic.
Mm,
And I've spoken to enough students at HBCUs who also believe it is more about popularity over policy. They'll celebrate the person once the person has been elected because they're friends and they want to support their fellow what's it called classmates.
yeah.
But it makes me wonder, based on everything that you've just said, that those who go into these positions, it may not necessarily be their fault that they don't always know what the positions truly demand of them and what the what the positions should demand of them. And it would be nice if there was a place like NASAP, if it's not already being done, where that's where you get trained to a certain degree on what the expectations are when you are an SGA president, regardless of your school, the expectations when you are a senator, regardless of your school. Of course, there'll be little changes here and there that are specific to your institution, but generally, on a governing level, this is what these positions should do. And then I wonder if it would help, Jaden, and I want your opinion on this, if there was a universal expectation of what these campaigns and elections should require of the students running for office so that it's a little bit more of an even playing ground. If a Dejaden who not everybody knows Dejaden, if a Tosin who nobody knows is interested in running, as opposed to a Dejaden who everybody knows, name recognition is probably going to get him some votes over a Tosin who nobody knows. Where do you think that kind of training should occur? And if you've got a couple of ideas, what should be involved in the training?
Mhm. I think because everybody is having conferences these days, and of course, it just depends on the university if they want to send their student leaders there. But I think NASAP is main foundational ground for this kind of training to happen. And I've never been, so I cannot say whether they do or don't.
What
I'm
they
sure
do
they
or
do
don't
on
do.
some.
Yeah,
I'm sure they do on some level. But apart from NASAP, I even do believe that the university itself, and I can speak for Jackson State, we actually do. We have a new leaders boot camp, is what we call it. This training ground to be able to effectively help them to understand. Now, truth be told, it doesn't always take. They still essentially are going to do what they want to do anyway.
absolutely.
But it is very important. I think that the training ground for this should happen, of course, not only at these offsite campuses, but mainly at these institutions, because that's the home field. That's where everything is happening. And the issues of Jackson State University are different from that of Howard University. The issues at
Of
Howard
course.
University are different than that of Alabama State University. And so, at the home ground, you know what your issues are. You know how to prepare your leader for that specific issues that rise at that specific institution. So I think on the home front, at that institution is the main space. And of course, then you can branch out and get a more global or universal aspect of what this leadership position requires. But I also do think that there needs to be some type of, and I'm sure there is out there somewhere, some type of corporate body that governs a standard for a election or a general student government association at any HBCU, I would say, because that way we're all on the
On the
um,
same
same
page.
page, and we're not um, moving out of sync. Everybody, we can fix this problem all at one time. We have one unified body that is governing all these institutions and making sure they're following by the same standards at the same times, and making sure that we're actually producing effective leaders in those
We've
spaces.
had a guest on. I think his name is Tavon. I'm going to double check and make
Yes,
sure you know Tavon. Okay,
yes.
lovely. I think you and him should get together
We
because
actually are supposed to be doing some stuff here soon. Yeah,
lovely. And the reason why I'm putting that out there publicly is you've just mentioned that it would be nice if there is a body that
absolutely.
almost like a regulatory body
Yeah,
that assists, not just based on regulations, but gives like a standard of what should and should not be when it comes to things like that. I think it should come from people who've been members of SGA, and that's why I thought of Tavon and now yourself
yeah,
to put that together if it doesn't already exist. And if it does exist, guys, get in touch with us. Let's know who you are so that we can be involved on a more global level on making sure enough institutions are aware of your existence. But if you don't exist, if the entity that Jaden just mentioned, which I really think is a good idea,
absolutely.
because it takes the pressure off a little bit from individual institutions
Mhm.
if there are regulations for this to occur. The Jaden, Tavon, I think the two of you should put it together. Before I ask you a few more questions, I want to, I have to make this a little bit fun for
Yes,
for
yes.
both of us. So I think I know your answers to all of these, but I'm still going to ask anyway. So this is a different take on the rapid fire. I want you to give me yes or no, just
Okay.
a simple yes or no. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions with regards to what you think SGA should be responsible for. And by responsible for, have a voice at the table. And I know you said everything,
Mhm.
but I'm going to throw a few specific things at you. Are you ready?
Mhm.
Should SGA be responsible for parking,
Yes.
campus safety,
No.
tuition advocacy,
You said tuition advocacy. Yes.
tuition advocacy,
Absolutely.
mental health,
Absolutely.
dining services,
Portions. When
portions,
you say yes or no, I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes.
career opportunities,
Absolutely.
student protests.
Absolutely.
Wow. Campus traditions,
Yes.
academic policies.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. 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 Um okay, so you said yes to a lot of them, right? You said no to campus safety. I want you to give me a little bit more on the mental health one. You said yes to mental health.
Absolutely.
And you also said yes to academic policies. Those two I want you to get into. Tell me the why you feel they must be involved with those two specifically. Again, mental health and academic policies.
So for mental health, I currently chair the committee on our mental health and wellness for Student Government Association at Jackson State. And because we are students, we understand what the workload is like. We understand what the mental health battles are. And so that's why I personally feel, because whom better to talk about it than someone who is in the same shoes as that individual, and of course being in that leadership position, you get to understand it and also advocate for that student leader who doesn't have the same level of voice that you have. And that's why I absolutely feel that student government should be responsible for mental health spaces. To my tenure as president, my administration created a whole space called what we call the Zen Zone at the time, dedicated towards this. It was a relaxation space for students to reserve at any particular time they wanted and just
Yeah.
unwind and unclutch. It had all kinds of Zen and mental health um, gadgets in there for them to help, with whatever situation they were going through. But I think as students, no one can be able to tell the story like a student. And
Yeah.
so that's why I believe for that particular space that they should be responsible for. We should be responsible for mental health. And you said the other one was academic and
Academic policies. Academic
yes, absolutely,
policies.
absolutely. Because I feel as though time brings about a change, and this we are not the same students from the students of the 2000s. Of course, as you know, AI is on the rise, and everybody uses AI for something different. I don't care who you are and what you say, you use AI in
We
some
use
particular.
AI.
So the way in which we learn is different, and I think we are at a different level of learning as today because a lot of people are using AI to do their work. And I even Pastor Dr. Jason Gibson has went viral as of recently because he put a little white note in his campus assignment, and it caught a lot of his students of cheating. And so today is different. And so I think it's nothing like a student who understands simple same to the mental health aspect, the same students who understand what is it like in the classroom today to be able to communicate to those academic affairs faculty and staff of, okay, this is different than the textbook that may have been written in the 2000s. We have to change our approach.
Yeah.
And so that's why those students who actually understand this from a student perspective have to be in that room to advocate for those academic affairs issues or even those mental health issues because nobody understands it like a student, especially that times have now changed, especially with the rise of AI and just people are learning differently. We have to bring it hard these days.
So I know that several institutions that I'm aware of have something called student councils
Mhm.
that students sit on and are supposed to be advisory to all the different sections, to academic affairs, to all of the stuff. My appeal is that they actually listen to the students
Absolutely.
because I don't think it's about reinventing the wheel. I heard I smiled when you said we learn differently. Learning today, schooling today is different from schooling of the past, and I chuckled because I don't think you could not be more right. Um, and I don't want to out people, but when I see some people still literally only lecturing at students, and that's just not the way most of our students learn anymore. It
Absolutely.
really tells that is there a disconnect? And this is
Absolutely.
something that is solvable. This is something that is fixable. So we've got all these councils that I'm aware of that students sit on, advisory council for this, advisory council for that. Yay, beautiful. Are you listening to the Jadens of the world who are the ones affected by the subject matter that you brought the council together for? Jaden, do you think SGA functions differently at HBCUs than at non HBCUs?
Absolutely. Um, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I enlighten us is what I was going to say. Enlighten us based on what you're aware of and based on your experiences.
They're not going to like me for this, but I feel we need to take a note out of the SGA's at a PWI's handbook because the way I have seen, and I'm not saying it's all right, but the way I have seen PWIs run their student government or associated student boards, whatever they call them, SGAs, I love it. I mean, it's just they come in the door knowing that this is a job that I have, and I'm not sure of what all the effectiveness they have, but at least they put on the persona that, oh, we getting stuff done, you know. And so I think HBCUs need to take a play out of the book to be able to create this severity for Student Government Association at our HBCUs, because from what I can tell at like an institution here at Mississippi State, who I oftentimes watch, they have it going on. And of course, they have access to more funding. They have access to all these other different types of things, which of course, um, um, plays a major factor into that. But at a certain point, we just have to get serious.
Mm,
I'm personally tired of titles without transformation, or noise
mm,
without
mm.
negotiations, or presence without position. I'm trying to find another P. Presence
I
without position,
see.
and all these different types of things. I'm tired of it, and um, I think it's, PWI is running most of them. Now, I can I can talk from the Mississippi State. It runs a very effective and a very organized and effective Student Government Association. Like I said, I'm not sure of the inner workings of it, but from what I can tell, they at least look like they're getting things done. At our HBCUs, I just can't always tell, other than the nice outfits. So we known for our clothes. We're
We
known
are
for our
known for,
clothes. We are known for our
sir.
clothes and the crowns and all that. And it's beautiful. I love it. I'm all here all for it. But along with your crown, make sure that you're getting stuff done as well.
I listen, Tosin, hush, because I've got thoughts. I've got thoughts. I've got
I'm here for it.
presentation. Presentation is amazing. I
Absolutely.
believe that you should dress the part. I do. I'm one of those human beings. I also truly believe that you should absolutely dress the part of where you want to be. So not just dress the
Absolutely.
part, but dress the part of where you want to be. But can we put dress in quotes?
Yes.
Because when I use the word dress, I'm not just talking about your crown.
Right.
I'm not just talking about your adornment. I'm talking about the skill sets that you have. I'm talking about all of it. I'm talking about the exemplification as well. And this is where I need to get quiet
Because
because I can't
appearance,
necessarily say that I see that in the
yeah.
rest of it
Because appearance is not governance. It's not. And
at
that's what we
all.
have to get away from. It's not.
At all. Appearance, I think, will sometimes either demand that
Hmm.
you pay attention to me.
Yeah.
So now that you've got my attention, what next? And it's the what next that I don't think we always pay as much attention to.
Right.
Cuz it's good to get my attention with the 10-foot high crowns that you wear. Beautiful. Now that I've got it,
What
you've got
next?
to give me something afterwards. I've got a quick test for you. I want you to be SGA president for today.
Okay. Oh wow.
Okay. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
I'm ready. You've been SGA president, so this is
Yes.
about to be easy for you.
Yeah.
So so I want you to enact a 1-minute manifesto. And you've got less than 60 seconds for this. What's your first executive priority as SGA president?
Hmm. Give me a little bit more context. At any institution, or
At
what are some
any
of
institution, any institution, you're SGA president, what's your first executive priority? What's the first priority that you are going to make sure that you've got executive power to do something about? What's it going to be?
my first executive power would be me educating students of what the power that my office holds. I'm
Lovely.
hosting seminars, I'm hosting listening sessions, I'm passing out documentation or booklets, whatever I need to do to be able to understand, to help the students understand the power of my office, but not only the power of my office, the power that they hold.
The power that they hold. What's the first meeting you're scheduling?
With
Who
the
are you
pres-
meeting with first?
with the president of the institution, we got to
President
be
of
on
the
the
youth.
same page.
What's one promise? This is my last manifesto question for you. I really like this one. What's one promise you refuse to make because you know you can't keep it?
For my specific institution, that I'm gonna give everybody housing. Everybody's gonna have housing. The housing crisis is gonna be solved.
Because it can't. What
It does.
made me think about that question? You're old enough to have voted,
Yeah.
and you know how during campaign elections at least one person is going to promise that they're not going to raise taxes. At least one person is going to promise that X, Y, and Z is not going to happen. And give it 2 months. Give it two
Yeah.
months. And the first thing you see are all these prices being raised, and then they tell you, well, we couldn't help it. But you promised that you weren't going to do that, though. So why we here? So
Yes.
yeah, I was curious to hear what yours was going to be. Housing is a good one. That's
Yeah.
a good one. That's a good one. Okay. So I've got another rapid fire because I just love to hear what your responses are going
Ooh,
to be for
okay.
this. So okay, this is not really rapid fire. It's like a lightning round. So
Okay.
give me short answers to Jaden because I want to get
Okay.
all of them in.
Okay.
What is the biggest misconception about SGA?
The biggest misconception about SGA is that we just wear crowns and clothes.
Who is the most underrated campus leader? Give me a title. And it
The
could be
most underrated.
any
Senate,
campus leader.
Senate Pro Temp, if your
S-
institution has it.
Senate pro temp. You're going to tell the people what that is in a second. One issue students should care more about
Their tuition,
their
rates.
tuition.
Yeah, tuition rates.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tuition rates.
and
What's one
the
Sorry, go
fact that
ahead.
you change them. You know, the fact that these things can be changed if you
Okay.
advocate enough.
Okay. What's one most overrated student tradition? Most overrated.
I'm gonna say the events and parties.
The events and parties. They're not
Yeah,
going to like you for that one.
no, they're not.
One one issue students complain about too much.
Ooh, I'm gonna say financial aid and things like that.
One university offers students should know better.
Say it one more time for me.
One university offers students should know better.
I'm always say the student engagement and leadership office. Absolutely.
Leadership office, they should know that better. Okay. What's the last question? What's the most effective way to get administration's attention? Whether you agree with the method or not, what's the most effective way to get administration's attention?
Collective organizing, strength in numbers.
You know what I thought you were going to say?
What's that?
Take it to social media.
Uh, what that can be strength in numbers because we're all out here posting. Yeah,
I'm not scared. Scared is not the right word, but anytime I see anyone on social media, any student from an HBCU on social media, my heart sinks ever so slightly for their administration. It
yeah.
doesn't even matter what they're about to say. My heart sinks ever so slightly. Um, because and I'm the one that's going to get slammed for this. Most of the time it's feelings over facts that
Absolutely.
is riding the social media information that we see, and it then gets very very muddy, and once
Absolutely.
it gets muddy, there's not much anybody can do about calming those fires until it just erodes by itself.
And then, I mean, we people, students, and anybody is going to already have a preconceived notion about any particular subject. So I'm already going into a situation, that regardless of what the facts are, already knowing that I don't like these institutions because they didn't give this girl her money.
Yeah.
Regardless of the facts or the circumstances that surround this situation, especially in a space where emotion has taken over. I'm always, before I support anything, I'm always going to, and we just did that a minute ago. I'm always going to be aware of what the facts are. How do we get here and where we going before I support or do anything? But in this day and time, not everybody always wants to look at the facts. We take things for face value. We see what it is here. Okay, well, I know the institution wrong, and
Yes.
and that's
Yes.
all there is to it. But I think we need to do a little bit deeper dive into gathering what it is that's really the issue and figuring out the solution, helping, being a
Yeah.
part of the solution as well, not just emphasizing the problems.
At the very worst, because I know I'm not always able to dig deep into each issue that's on my radar, but knowing the right sources to go to is also important,
Absolutely.
because there's some of our media and journalism organizations that are still doing an amazing job in making sure that before they put something out there, they've gone to gather the facts
Fact
for
check.
you. Jaden, if I stopped 10 students on Jackson State University's campus today and asked them, what has your SGA accomplished in the past academic year?
Mm.
What percentage do you think could actually answer that question?
5 to 10%
That's not
could give
bad.
you, yeah, could give you something. Personally, if I were you, was to ask me, they gonna hate me for this. I can't really be able to tell you what they've actually done. But and that's why we're here to fix this issue. Like I said, it's time to move away from being figureheads. And like I said, a lot of the policy is not popular amongst students. So, a lot of them don't even engage in this. They want to know what the campus activity board, who they bringing for homecoming,
Yeah.
what artists is coming in, what parties, what events they having going on. That's what they care about. They don't care about the policy until, of course, it's a particular time like this, and they have to pay this tuition, they have to pay,
Yeah.
these student activity fees and all these different types of stuff. And so, but by the time they pay it, they don't care nothing else about it. So where the party at next? That's
Yeah.
that's just kind of how it is. But I think,
That's why you answered that it's the most overrated student tradition is the
yeah,
parties and the events.
because it's so much more to student life. And I guess I'm a little bit biased because I'm not a partier. I'm all about policy. I've always been about business, so I'm a business major. But I'm gonna try to get a little bit more active this year. But I just feel as though, with our housing crisis and so much is going on at my particular institution, we should be more involved in a lot. And we have a new president, thank God. We have a new president who I'm very excited about her administration. And so, we have an opportunity to meet at the table and get some things done for our students, and not just the current ones, but the incoming in the future as well.
To those who might not agree with you, who have every right not to agree with
Every
you,
right.
by the way, about the parties and the events, I do want us to remember that policy actually does drive everything.
Mhm.
So for that same party, it's a policy on the books that decides whether or not the party can end at 1 o'clock in the morning, has to end at 11 p.m., or can stay up till 2 a.m. in the morning. And I think if people saw that there is an intertwined
Mhm.
relationship between these things, my hope is that there would be some of us who will be a little bit more involved on the policy and decision making side of things in order to enable those who want to do the
Yeah.
parties and events to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And and even for us at Jackson State University, our activity fee is the one thing that is tied to for instance, we voted this most past election to raise our student activity fee. And of course, this is the budget that we have to be able to do activities throughout the whole entire year. Um Ours is not as big as that of NCAT, but so students were complaining about who we brought in, who they brought in for homecoming, and just like, well, our activity fee isn't but so much. And so we can't necessarily afford all these, high dollar rappers and everything else. But when we put in policy to raise this activity fee, okay, yeah, now we can afford some other people. We can make this experience more. But the policy is that activity fee.
And then you can, and this is what I hope students get, because like you said, you're going to be a student for 4 years, maybe six for some, but then you go out into the world and you've got to hopefully be a civically minded, civically engaged human being. And knowing how things are interconnected really, really
Absolutely.
matters. Because if you all vote to raise your activity fee, then you then have the right to ask and demand and challenge and hold them accountable for the decisions being made based on that activity fee, which also then requires you to be transparent with regards to what you're spending the monies of the activity fee on. It's intertwined, guys. It's intertwined. I really
Absolutely.
do think more people should get involved with just knowing, even if
Yeah.
they don't want to be the person that is working on the policy, get involved with knowing how one is connected to the other.
Absolutely.
We're almost done,
Okay.
but I do want to find out from you,
Okay.
5 years from now, what do you hope students say your SGA? Because you're part of SGA. You may not be the president, you may not be the vice president, but you're senator at large at
Yeah.
SGA at Jackson State University. What do you hope students say about your SGA accomplishment?
Particularly for this administration here that, like I said, I'm excited about. I pray and I hope that they are able to say they changed the status quo for what student leadership looked like at this institution. I think for the last several years, we just coast on by. We just held the position. But I hope that we create active, influential, and effective change. And of course, something that is tangible. I oftentimes talk to our director of student leadership, and I say, we need something tangible. not something that's put down on paper, but something that they can see, something that actually change, something they can walk past every day, something that they can touch or whatever else that shows that SGA is doing something to make my student experience or my student life better. But that we change the status quo.
Finish the sentence for me, Jaden.
Mm.
The purpose of Student Government Association isn't to
Put on a facade
but is.
to govern with effective and influential leadership.
Jaden Readus, you're always a delight to talk to. We're gonna have you back. It's just a matter
Yes.
of when.
Love it.
It's just a matter of when. It's just a matter of topic. I do hope that those going into the 2026-2027 academic year, especially those who are interested in Student Government Association, that they take a minute to educate themselves. I hope they listen to this episode, by the way. Reach out to the Jaden Reeduses of the world who are very passionate about student voice on student government associations campus wide. He has served as an SGA president. He's now the senator at large, one of the senators at large at Jackson State University. Educate themselves. I think that's what's missing about educating yourself about what SGA is, what SGA should be. So that's my wish for those coming in. Jaden, what's your wish for those coming in as it pertains to Student Government Association before we end this episode?
That they desire to get involved and be a part of the change. We can't do it all by ourselves. I know I love to drive up front, but there's going to need to be somebody who comes behind me and takes the torch on a little bit further, or it comes behind us and takes the torch on a little bit further. And so I'm hoping that these incoming freshmen or just anybody who's there now decide to get involved and be a part of the change. That they recognize the issues, that they see how we can solve it, and they be a part of the change.
That's the last word. For those of you watching, it is impossible for you to have watched and not loved his skin routine, which is just water and soap. But it's also impossible for you not to have loved this episode. So please go ahead and like this episode because of the Jaden Readus from Jackson State University. I hope I've done my due diligence to encourage you, invite you to subscribe to I Love My HBCU ? Wherever you get your podcasts. Yours in HBCU love. See you next episode. To Jaden Readers, always thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to I Love My HBCU ? Let's keep the conversation going as we share our stories and encourage more practical support of HBCUs, whilst of course holding each other accountable. Don't forget to follow and subscribe for the latest episodes. Until next time, love and lift your HBCU.